Well, you got shit going on. I can't think.
Well, it's live now. You have Sally in the kitchen with some
Yeah,
mysterious person.
she's got the microwave going on. I'm like thinking about food.
Yeah, I just finished working out. I'm thinking about food too, but we're here with WCW legend, MMA legend, UFC original, one of the most popular people of the original UFC, one of the most popular fighters. You've got 3 books out as well. You just appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast. David Tank Abbott, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for asking. Everything's moving along. Everything's cool. Health is great.
Yeah, you're looking actually like you've put on some more weight since the last time I spoke with you.
Yeah, I've been hitting the gym, getting my strength back. Nothing to write home about, but probably stronger than 99.9% of people out there. But I just go in there to get my bench in, so to feel normal.
And we are going to do another interview with you on Tuesday with Paul Herrera. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but the guy that fought Gary Goodridge at the UFC in Puerto Rico. However, we had to throw this in because it's actually trending today. Big John McCartney responding to comments you made about him on the Joe Rogan podcast. So today we are going to be responding to what John McCartney said because I actually just watched this podcast that he did and it didn't seem all that credible.
Oh yeah, well, I actually saw obviously a picture of myself, so I parked off and checked it out a little bit as much as I could stand. It was kind of like the goons of high school all get together and they want them to tear down the cool guy or whatever. So the goons had a little powwow and started making up all these stories about nonsense, basically. So King Goon was hanging out with some other clown with glasses on. And oh my God, he saw me sitting in a bar by myself. Could you believe that? And I said, I've had enough of this. So turned it off.
Yeah, that was your whole gimmick, though, being a bar brawler and enjoying alcohol. And one of the things they talked about was they were alleging that you only talk about drinking beer, and they're claiming that you only drink vodka. They've only seen you drinking vodka. Who the hell cares what you drink? And I've never heard you just say you've drank beer. You always said you drank a vodka. I forget
Yeah.
exactly what it is, but it's a mixture of vodka and something, right?
Oh yeah, I used to drink Stoli, and it's not, it's a premium vodka, but you can get it all over the nation. And so, like, I'm kind of a finicky kind of guy, so I didn't want to get penciled into, oh, I just like Tito's or just like this. I wanted to be able to get the vodka I enjoy all around the nation. And you can rest assured, I've been to all 50 states except for Alaska. I've had at least one drink there. I've spent in each state, and I've spent a night in each state. So, shocker! Guess what? I was at the bar by myself in all those states too. But
Yeah, and
if you're a goon, you probably think that's shocking. But I mean, that's why you're a goon from high school.
somebody watching here says Big John always came across as a dick, but the one thing I'll say, they're trying to make it seem like drinking beer is better than vodka. Vodka is actually the healthiest alcohol to drink. It's the cleanest
Well,
on the liver.
it's all good to me, man. I'll drink a case of beer. The only reason why I drink beer is because I'd have to drink a case a night and pack on the pounds.
Yeah, sad to say, I've been there with a case of beer too, but we both don't do that anymore, so it's
No,
probably a good thing. But
Well,
I actually watched this whole interview since
yes,
you told me that you wanted to do this with me tonight. So let me go through it point by point with you if you don't mind.
sure, no problem. I'll answer all the questions.
Okay, so first of all, he says that he's friends with this Paul Herrera guy, and that
Sure.
Paul can confirm a lot about what he's saying in regards to you. And we're going to have Paul on Tuesday, so I guess we can ask this directly to Paul. But what do you say about this?
Well, I've known Paul since the get-go when the beginning of the show started when they were McCartney was the ref there, and yeah, I'd be interested to see what Paul says. I'm pretty sure he's in line with me. Uh, I could care less. One thing about before we get into this, uh, Big John McCartney, um, he. I don't want to get into a lesson about philosophy or whatever, but when you have an argument, there's such thing as fallacies, and Big John McCarthy is the king of red herrings, and that fallacy is right after ad hominems. And that fallacy is to take something that completely has nothing to do with the argument and expand on it and start arguing about nonsense, like the moon is made out of cheese. Art Davie told me the moon was made out of cheese. What are you talking about? So the main point of this is that I called McCartney corrupt and a crook because I believe my point of view he is. He was a jujitsu student and a full stooge for the Gracies. And so that's the only way you fight. And I did see a clip or what have you of him saying that he went into jujitsu because he was scared because of the LA riots. And I don't know how you can be afraid when you have a gun strapped to your hip, but that's why he went into the jujitsu place. And listen, I got pictures of me. I got not videos. They didn't have videos at the time of me wrestling when I was 10 years old at AAU meets and going to practice, high school practices when I was 10 years old, following my brother, wrestling, fell in love with it. That's what I did. What did Big John McCarthy ever do besides be a police officer? And there's nothing wrong with being a police officer or law enforcement. Trust me, I have many buddies that are cops. And he's got what we call a heavy badge, a badge heavy. He takes that whole arrogant attitude towards everything, and he is basically. I would like to know for him to comment besides being a ref, and mind you, everybody that has ever stepped into the octagon is a tough man. Well, not everybody. He walked in there, so there's three. So there's one guy that I can't tell you he's tough. If he was tough, let's hear about his wrestling background. Let's hear about what he's done in the jiu-jitsu studio or these things. Let's see it. Let's hear about it. Well, you don't, because he's one of those little high school goons that ran around and did nothing. It was like he was like the goon that hung out with the cool guys because he had a car and then kind of
He says
hijacked.
in this he was an arm wrestler. He says he was an arm wrestler in this podcast
Oh,
where he talks about you.
well, I don't want to talk about what he does in the shower, but whatever. That's arm wrestling. I think that's right up there with jujitsu and the octagon.
Okay, so let's get into this. Uh, why will one of the things that he brought up was you will not say Dave Thomas's real name.
I don't care about Dave Thomas. He has about much to do with my life as Big John McCarthy does. I don't give a rat's ass about him.
Okay, the next point was he goes on to this story with Alan and this this fight that happened at UFC 5
Yes.
at the bar. He says there was no Brazilians involved in the fight. It was just you and Allen, and he was the one that broke it up.
Oh, the full-on narcissistic bent that has to include himself in there. No, Alan Goes was a big mouth little midget that flap his gums. I went over and spanked him in his own dojo. Me, Paul Herrera, and Eddie Reese. He made short work of Eddie Reese just because of size. That's why they have weight classes. And Paul. And at that point in time, we were very ignorant about jujitsu and didn't think it would work, didn't realize it would work. We found out later that it was for real. And as a matter of fact, after we went into his dojo on the drive home, we went, holy shit, that is real, you know, because we used to see Hoist on there. And Hoist is jujitsu and Gracie is jujitsu, but Hoist is a tough man. Head and shoulders tougher than mentally than Big John McCarthy could ever be. But we went, holy shit, this stuff works. And when you're a good wrestler, which Paul Herrera is, he's an All-American from Nebraska, it doesn't take very long to learn jiu-jitsu or to learn against it, learn how to defend against it. And so when he came up and was flapping his gums, he had some guy that he was in the corner that was fighting, that was getting his ass kicked, and I was coaching him like, punch, punch. And I think he took offense to that, came up to me, well, those are the days you don't come up and say something smart to me and not think you're going to get into it. And so we got into it. A little foot side note that no one knows about. The next day, we're staying at a hotel. It was in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And for some reason, you know, like I said, it's all written. I pushed the button on the elevator, not knowing how the hell I was going to go, navigate through the whole place. And it went down to the pool floor, which was kind of odd, but there was like a patio type thing covered. And I'm like, oh, hell, I'm going down. I want to go up. Guess what? The elevator doors open up. Guess who's standing there? Elon Goes and like 4 Brazilian guys. And I'm going, oh, well, man, it's going to go. It's going to go. So I was ready to go, man. I strapped back and I walked right through the middle, all 4 of them. Not one of them said a word, not a little squeak or anything. And I walked out of the area and they didn't have anything to say. They just slithered into the elevator. That'll tell you the fighter's mentality that they had. And I can tell you this, if it was me and my friends, you'd still be looking for them in the carpet of the elevator there. I know. So I'm so arrogant or whatever. That's just the truth. I mean, you say whatever you want. If you understand, you understand. If you're on the other side of the coin and you want to breathe on me, whatever. I'm a jerk. I'm a bully. Oh, these guys wanted to fight me last night. They had their opportunity. Just let me walk right through the middle of them all.
So he said you started that fight with Allen. You were drunk at the time. You were always drunk.
Yes.
That's that last thing he said, and he goes on to talk about the Pat Smith elevator incident and says you are a sociopath. Sorry, sociopath.
Wow, I enjoy that tag. Listen, I'm still blown away by it. I forgot the beginning part of the question.
That you started the fight with Allen because you were drunk, and apparently,
Oh, yeah,
even though you were
okay.
fighting as a professional fighter, you were drunk all the time.
Yes, and John McCarthy has never seen me drunk unless he was there sitting there drinking. He might have saw me drunk in Japan when we did a presser over there. But as far as at the fight and then after the fight, he might have seen me drinking, but I wasn't drunk all the time. And what kind of attack is that to go, oh, he's like a high school goon. He was drunk all the time. Listen, it's no secret I got a liver transplant because I like to party, but I have discipline and I'm responsible. If I have a fight, I'm not going to be partying it up until the fight's over with. And as far as what was the other half of that?
Well, one of the other guys said he saw you drinking at 11 a.m., but if you're not fighting that day and you wake up at the hotel, what's wrong with having a drink at 11 a.m.?
Let me tell you something. My bank account was stuffed full. I had nothing but time. I don't need anybody telling me. I don't need permission to tell me what time I can drink and not drink. I kept odd hours. I would party for 2 or 3 days straight and sleep for 2 and then go do something else. I will tell you this. I got down, brother. Obviously, you don't get a liver transplant because you're pussyfooting around with little high school geeks. And when I was getting down, and I wouldn't have time limits. 3 in the morning was 3 in the afternoon to me. It doesn't matter. I didn't have to go meet you somewhere at a building. I didn't have to do anything. I had the greatest time. I dare to say, and obviously I don't live other people's lives. I had more fun in 1 month than most people have had in their life. I'm telling you, man, I burned it down. I was right up there with David Lee Roth. Oh, you kids don't even know who the hell that is. Not when I was fighting, though, when there was business to be had. In fact, in professional wrestling, I never partied until I had my match. Right? That I can say almost as a blanket thing, but I had one blemish, and that was we missed a flight. There was a group of us, and we all missed a flight leaving Miami to fly to the middle of the state. And I was wrestling Barbarian, and so I succumbed to peer pressure on the travel up, and everybody was partying. I had the guy from Standards and Practices from the TV channel there. Everybody was drinking. I held strong, and this is just professional wrestling. I held strong for half the ride, and then they finally broke me. So I ended up showing up to the match drunk, and Barbarian took some chops to me that left some bruises immediately, but it was all a good time, and there was no, oh my God, you messed something up. It flew by like nobody noticed. So as far as me showing up drunk and all that, always drunk, that's BS. And it's actually, I guess you say, whatever, that's chicken shit words trying to make up a story. It's like little children, oh, he did this and he did that. Oh, how old are you, John? You're a big donut? My
He
God.
also does not like when you impersonate him. He said that he does not talk like that, and he brought up when you impersonated him talking about the gloves, and he denied that happened.
Yeah, the gloves. Who cares? First of all, who cares who brought the gloves in? The only point I bring up bringing the gloves is I'm the one that started the modified, cut the bar out of the glove. How if during the fighting meeting, if that was such a big deal, and that he said they were steel bars in the glove? No, they were heavy gauge plastic tubes, clear plastic tubes. And I cut them out and I held them up and I said, "Hey, Big John, can I wear these?" And he's like, "He didn't make the gloves." I don't care if I made the gloves or whoever. I modified those gloves, and that Melton Bowen guy, he wore the gloves. He was a striker. He's going to cut the post out to make his punches softer. I don't think so. So only reason why I say I made up the gloves is because all these dumbasses that were fighting in the fights and the shows, tough men, and they, I'm trying to say this right. They were tough men, right? And they were tough men. The gloves, they were, how do you say this? I don't know what their word. Their kung fu, their jujitsu, all this stuff. They never really been in a fight. That's why jujitsu is so popular. Once again, I've rolled with guys, world champion, whatever they call themselves, guys, that couldn't tap me out for hours. So I know how to wrestle against jiu-jitsu people, and it works. But the lure of jiu-jitsu, there's no pain involved. So you can go roll around, twist a toe, slap the mat, and say, oh, I'm a black belt, this and that, because there's no pain involved. When it was cool to go boxing and say, I'm a boxer, they'd go in there and box until they started sparring, and they go, oh, shit, this hurts, getting punched in the face. That's why boxing got dropped off the planet. So all these soft people go out there, learn how to do jiu-jitsu, and then they say, oh, I'm black belt in jiu-jitsu because Gracie is a tough guy. No, Gracie's a tough guy because he's tough, not because he knows jiu-jitsu. Yes, jiu-jitsu makes him tougher, but just because you're a brown belt, black belt, whatever belt guy, that doesn't mean anything. John Marsh, I trained with him for months and months. That guy's one tough man. I'm telling you, that guy's tough as nails when he's on his game, so to speak. But other than that, jiu-jitsu, great. But as far as I lost where we were at. What were we talking about in your question?
Well, this actually has to do with something else he mentioned. He said you called Dan Severn and Hoist Gracie pussies for lying around on the mat.
Well, hey, you know what? Back in the day, I might have. Who cares? You know what? Your first time I ever met Severn. Severn's a tough guy, wrestling wise. He appears to me to be a heavyweight, and trust me, I've wrestled with the best in the world and held my own. And so when he let me down, I was red, white, and blue. Yoo-hoo, great wrestling. I love wrestling, man. I've always said I'll kill Mike Tyson in a real fight back in the day when Mike was going off. Just, you guys don't know. And then I go to the boxing gym and I was learning how to box by very talented trainers. I would tell them, I go, you understand that boxing, everybody in this boxing gym are pussies. And they would look at me and I go, well, mentally, I go, if I told you right now there's a whole bunch of wrestlers outside that wanted to fight in a real fight, I go, there would be a line 20 deep wanting to call on the payphone to the cops because you guys would be all afraid. And I go, you go do that at the college wrestling room and go, hey, there's 10 boxers out there who want to fight. I go, they'd be tearing each other's head off to get out the door to rip the boxer's head off. That's just the mentality of it. And so when Severn lost to Hoyce, I can't tell you how I felt like the wind was taken out of my sails. Like, oh my God, he lost this little guy in pajamas. Are you kidding me? Not knowing what jiu-jitsu was. I mean, you have to realize it wasn't, no, that's where you fought, was on the street, not in a dojo with some guy, or a gym nowadays. There's MMA gyms with referees and agreements and all that stuff. that's what was going on. And so for me, when I went to UFC 5 because a wrestling buddy worked for a clothing company and got me tickets, and they said I was in the show and I had a paper. I was like, I can't believe this. I want to go watch it. And they gave me a ticket. Well, I walked into the lobby of this hotel in Charlotte, and it was like a swap meet with all these guys out with their fold up tables, and they had their little tablecloths over it with their gloves and all their pictures about how tough they are. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, these guys couldn't beat themselves out of a wet paper bag. You know, it's like they're out there trying to sell something that's not true. And I walked after getting my key to go up in the office. I got in the elevator, and guess who comes in the door of the elevator with some other guy? I have no idea who it was. And I go, oh my God. And I push my floor number. Elevator starts moving. I go, you're Dan Severn. And so, yeah, Dan Severn. Yeah. And I go, dude, you let wrestling down. Unfucking believable. And he was just kind of like, and I go, you ever do that again, I'll fucking kill you. And he just like, oh. And I understand crazy marks and all that. Everybody's kind of laughed it off. It wasn't meant like, I'm going to kill you. Like people like to twist. We'll get into that later. And he left, and I walked off. I've been in hundreds of wrestling rooms, and people know how to wrestle. They're tough guys. But there's a whole different realm of the hard-ass, tough wrestlers. They'll go out there and wrestle with their arm fucking about ripped off their body and doing whatever. Those guys are hard wrestlers, and it's amazing to me that Dan Severn, he's a softie. He's a cream puff, and whatever, you know, he plays his little gimmick as like the baby or the Dudley Do-Right, baby Huey kind of guy, and good, that's his space. But that's the first time I ever met Dan Severn, was at UFC 5 in the elevator, and I told him I'd kill him.
Someone's bringing up a point that I was going to ask you. John McCarthy said that he came up with the Tank name. Is that true?
Wow, is this Liars and Lane? This, seriously, you know, there's people out there. I don't give a rat's ass who came up with the name, but the first time that I ever heard Tank was from Art Davie, who was another storyteller like no tomorrow. Like, do these people have lives that they have to make up stuff to lie about? But anyways, I went in there. I was in jail, technically, work release thing, and he goes, I'll tell this guy to come in to, at the time it's Dave Thomas. I want to meet him and see if this guy's for real. So I go in there and I said, oh, I'm a wrestler, American wrestler, man. You guys need to get wrestling into this show of yours here. And he's all, well, we got a wrestler. We got Dan Severn, and, you know, we're trying to get all the different martial arts. And I'm like, wow, that really sucks. You know, I was already counting, there's no way this is going to really happen. There's no way. The wheels are going to fall off. And so I go, well, you know, I just got out of jail and for beating a cop's son up that totally used the system and railroaded me and screwed me over. And I'm really a street fighter, man. I've been in hundreds of street fights and I've never lost. And he's like going, yeah. And I go, no. I don't lose. It's not in my vocabulary. And that goes to what I've coined as fighter's fortitude. There's no quitting me. I have heart like no tomorrow. And if there's a chance of me winning, I'm not going to quit. And in the street, you don't have a choice. And so he goes, okay, well, let me think about it. This is this Art Davie guy, right out of Central Casting, of a little worm, goofball, backstabber kind of person. And we left the thing after I brought a bag full of fighting clothes, because he told me he had somebody for me to fight. And I brought him there, and he goes, it was raining, and it was a soggy grocery bag back in the days when they had brown paper bags. He goes, what's in the bag? I go, well, it's my fighting clothes. And I heard on the phone, because he has a speaker phone on Dave's desk, that you had somebody for me to fight. And he goes, you just fight for free? I go, hell yeah, if I don't go to jail, fuck yeah, let's do it. He's all, oh, you're fucking crazy. Well, we got in the truck and driving home, and I'm like, fuck, man, I knew this wasn't going to work. I told you it's not going to work out. Well, finally, a week later, calls up and he goes, hey, we have an idea. We need you to come in. So we go back there, and he goes, we want to call you Tank Murdoch. This is almost like a movie scene, you know? And there's like a little guy, he needed like a fedora on or something, and glasses and stuff. And I'm like, Tank Murdoch? I go, yeah. And he goes, we call you Tank Murdoch after the movie from Clint Eastwood. He's the street fighting legend that everybody knows about. And that guy with the orangutan or whatever his name was, I watched it after the fact. Goes and the orangutan, and so they called me the street fighting legend, Tank Murdoch. That's what they came up with. And I said, you could call me Lucy, and as long as I don't go to jail, I'm there. And that's where Tank Abbott came from.
Yeah, because John had mentioned that he came up with the name and you didn't like the name at first, but you ended up liking it.
That's another narcissistic get over. Oh yeah, I made the name, and I'm the responsible for him not liking, calling him a name that he doesn't like. That's me.
He also said you were responsible for them banning fish hooks in the UFC.
Absolutely right, because none of them pussies knew anything about fighting, real fighting. Once again, it goes back to the gloves. I don't know if I finished it off, but none of those guys have ever been in a fight, so they didn't know that you get your hands beat up. So back to my main beef with McCarthy, this is the lead into. No one knew what a guillotine choke was, and wrestling and all that kind of stuff. No one knew what it was. I mean, obviously somebody did, but I'm saying it wasn't prevalent. No one knew. It wasn't a common practice. And so I got, earlier, the tough guy who is a soft ass mentally person, Severn, gets choked out by what's his name, Shamrock, with a guillotine, and Oleg got another wrestler from Canada, and he choked him out. I can't remember the guy's name, but he went to like Fraser College or something. And so the guillotine was the solve-all for the takedowns, the double legs and the singles and all that. Well, I got trapped in a guillotine by Oleg, and I fought and fought and fought. And you try fighting out of a deep guillotine. If you don't know what it is and you let someone put it around your neck, you go ahead and try to fight out of it and see how long you last. Severn lasted 5 seconds. So I was laying there and fighting and fighting and fighting, and I finally popped my head out. And I was like, oh my God. I was like coming up from underwater and finally going, oh, air. And I sat there for a second. I got up back on top of him again, and he's in the guard. And I'm looking down at him. I'm like, yeah, what now, motherfucker? And so he's laying on the ground. And I slid a fish hook in on the side. And if you don't know what you're doing, you get your fingers bit off. And he tried to do it to me later, and he found out that that doesn't feel good. But that's where the fish hooking came from. I don't know about him banning it or anything. They couldn't even figure it out. They didn't know what they're doing. They didn't know what real fighting was. And so, like, John, what do you think that guy was at a wrestling meet when he was 10 years old, or going into a high school and wrestling the lightweights when he was 10? No, he's probably skateboarding around and playing tetherball.
And you're bringing up the Oleg match. That's where he stood you up. And the big point of contention there that you talked about on the Joe Rogan podcast is there's
Yeah,
supposed to be no rules, so he's not supposed to
yes,
stand you up. And his reason for standing you up that he said in this interview, which isn't a valid excuse, is you were quote blowing snot bubbles on Oleg, end quote, and he
yeah.
stood you up only once, he said, when you were blowing snot bubbles on Oleg. And again, is that a
Uh,
valid excuse for
Oh,
standing you up?
no, absolutely not. I was getting my air. What they call it now is I can't even think of it. It'll come to me. But I was getting my air. I just fought for 5 minutes to get out of that hole, and I'm like, fine. I'm going to sit here and get my air, and then come back. He Him saying that is all BS. Everything that comes out of that guy's mouth is BS. He First of all, I don't know what anybody's life dream is, but to be a referee, is that what you really want to be? You know what? I want to be a referee in a fighting show. Yeah, as what he developed this whole character around him for nonsense. Do you see Richard Steele or Mills Lane? Are they doing it anything like, oh yeah, he's a goofball that is a referee that shouldn't be recognized for anything. He's a goofball that's that's taking lies and arguments and trying to turn it into something he's not. If you guys want to, you know what? I'm into live and let live. If you guys want to idolize somebody like that, get down with your big bad self. But I'm pretty sure you could put a zebra outfit on 99.9% of the people, and I bet you they can go, "Are you ready? Are you ready?" And then go on and affect fights by breaking people up and stopping things. He did that. It's not just me. It's it's he did it to Randleman. He's done. That's as far as I've even looked. I remember because when he conspired with his wife and this Dr. Ron Instagro, Ron Instagro, Dr. Ron Instagro. Anyways, he leveraged me, goes to the boss and says, I'm going to take my toys home and we're going to leave if the big bad bully gets to stay here. Who does that? It's unbelievable. It, and so, uh, who idolizes that? I want to be just like Big John, call fights. And on top of it all, he's probably never been in a fight in his life. He's a badge heavy person, which means in cop world. And by the way, I want this out there. I have nothing but utmost respect for law enforcement. Always have and always will. I have many friends that are LA sheriffs and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I hesitate. Well, one time I was making small talk with John, and I said, "Hey, John, hey, how you doing?" And I go, "Yeah, I got some buddies that are in the L.A. sheriff's," and because he was telling me he's L.A. cop. This is in the beginning, and it stuck with me for some weird reason. And he's like, "Yeah," and I go, "Yeah, they're L.A. sheriffs and this and that," and almost like he stopped, and it was like a competition or something. And he goes, "L.A. sheriff," uh, almost with like contempt and like disgust. Like, "Are you kidding me? L.A. sheriff?" And I just went, "Whoa, wow." Now I just remember digging up the old memories. I did an arrest, how to arrest somebody with handcuffs for a friend of mine that I've known for decades. And we were filming it, and then that's how I said, "Hey, John," nah, nah, nah. And then I was just amazed at his. I thought they were all like buddies, all on the same team, cops against crooks, But that's that. Then I forgot where we were at.
Speaking of him being a cop, he addressed that you said on there that you accused him of checking your rap sheet. He said that he didn't have to check your rap sheet because he was aware of your history through his friends that were police in Huntington Beach.
That's quite possibly true, my brother. I stomped the streets. Yeah, and I'm not some bully. And for all these people and these comment clowns that write negative comment clowns, they're right. "Oh, he was a bully. My dad told me so." Well, you should have a talk with your dad for spreading lies. First of all, I I never bullied anybody, and sure, maybe somebody could twist something into a bully situation, but I never purposely bullied anybody. Anybody that fought me thought they were going to kick my ass. I would give people chances, and I would say, "Hey, your little smart ass talk is not going to go so far." I'm paraphrasing here or what have you. And it get to the point where I would smack somebody upside the head. I would, like an ear cup, I call it. I'd cup my hand and I'd hit their ear to let them know the next step is going to be a full on fight. And up until that point, it was like that was the last straw for someone to back out of. And that's what happened. And if it went on beyond that, you would get what you begged for. In my book, I call it wannabes, posers, and beggars. Different levels of people that think they're tough. There you go. There's my books. And the point is, these guys, they got beat up, wanted to be beat up. I only in my street fighting career was on the short end of the stick twice, and in one regard, short end of the hammer. Once I got tackled by a whole bunch of bouncers, and they handcuffed me, and the one guy was calling me a fuck and kicking me in the face while I was basically handcuffed. And I just kept firing back, "Fuck you, motherfucker. Just you just wait." Patience is a virtue that I possess. And so he kicked my head around in a circle a couple times and then found out who he was kicking, and he quit his bouncing job at the bar that he was working at. And then another one. And for all you young street fighting guys out there, warriors, never be a nice guy. There's no in love and war, there's no rules. And this one guy that was back in the days when house parties is after high school, junior college, 20-ish area. There was this one clown that used to go around and sucker punch everybody. He's a sucker punch clown, which is the opposite, if you look it up, of a warrior. He's a coward. And he was he's building a name. He's older now, but he was building a name for himself as knocking people out, and then he would run, and then everybody was afraid of him because they didn't want to get sucker punched. Even to this day, I think, even his friend. I've ended up drinking with him a few times just because retribution never dies, and I'm a very patient person. Anyway, so he was in front of a bar, and he bounced into me, and not knowing who he was. And so I pretty much had him. It was like a movie scene, It's kind of like, I don't know if you've seen the Mickey Rourke movie. I can't remember, but there's a bar scene where everybody's surrounded. Barfly. Yes, and so there's a bar scene in the back of the bar with all these people around, and these guys are fighting. It was just like that, except we were in front of the bar, and I pretty much had him on his back and put thumb locks on both of his eyes, and he was one step away from going night-night, and he started begging for his life. Like, please, I'm sorry, Mr. Abbott, sir. And so I stopped, and I was getting ready to play basketball with his head. And I looked up, and I see this huge crowd around me, and I go, oh, man, if I hurt this guy bad, I'm going to get in trouble. And so I let him up, and the guy slithers across Main Street there and digs through his work truck. He's like a construction hack dude. Unbeknownst to me, he grabbed a hammer and he hit it behind his leg. And the cowardly sucker puncher started yelling, come on, come on, come on. And I'm like, oh, man. And everybody's like looking at me like, what, are you afraid of him now? And so I go, that guy's just going to run off. So I'm a pretty fast guy, so I figured maybe if I get the jump on him, I could catch him. Well, I took off running on him, and he steps back and whacks me in the face with a hammer. Full on, boom, knocked me out cold. My friend picked me up and was carrying me back to his Blazer. And ever since then, I've come to know who he is and had drinks with him, but I've never been able to be one-on-one by myself with him. It's long past now. I don't give a rat's ass after my health issues. Let it be. Who cares? But those are my only two losses. And I've handed some people their ass that deserved it with their big mouths.
Now, there's a couple things that you might agree on with John. He went on to say for that Oleg series where you said that he kind of had an advantage going into that. He
Yes.
agreed that Oleg did have an advantage, and he also agreed that Don Fry had an advantage in the ultimate, but he said both of those cases were the cases of managers of the fighters playing around with
Yeah.
with
Yes.
stuff they wouldn't do.
I will tell you this. I thought that Oleg was part of it, but after I've watched it a gazillion times, Oleg is a tough guy and a true warrior at heart. And after watching it, I don't think he knew that was going to happen. I think Macias, being the little bitch that he is, oh my God, I can't even stand little pretty boy bitches like that. And he's not even pretty. He's just a little boy. Going out there winking and falling down in 14 seconds or something like that. What? Why even show up? And so there was an advantage on that. And then Fry, come on, he fought the guy before. They both have the same managers. You have to come up with that. And on top of that, whatever, who cares? He won by luck. He stumbled on to my toes, which in the boxing world is called queer street. When you get knocked out on your feet, you don't know where you're at and you're wobbling all around. He stumbled on top of my foot and I fell back. I went for an all for nothing thing. Who cares? He won the fight. Big deal. Could he do it again? No. Just like Cabbage couldn't do it again either. And just like Fat Ferozzo, he couldn't do it either. He went to the hospital twice, thanks to me.
Now, this is something you might have an issue with. He said you and him had an agreement that you would look at him a certain way or something, and he would stop the fight so you wouldn't have to tap.
Yes,
And he
okay.
said this happened for the Belfort fight, and he said this was
No.
to protect you as a draw for the UFC.
All right, seriously, is this like makeup story world? The only time that we ever Belfort thing, no. I mean, that guy was juiced to the gills, man. That guy's like Lance Armstrong. All his fights and his whole record should be banished. I mean, I wouldn't want to wear that man's shoes, walk around with the shame that must go with that, as being known as a fake. You're not real. You're just what steroids are. And you have to know, like, oh shit, I better not get in a fight right now because I'm not on the juice. And so that's what he's got to deal with. The only time that I ever said anything to John, and this is what he tried to extrapolate into something to take the heat off of him, is when I filled in for Maurice Smith before the show, or before the fight, before the show. See, Severn was supposed to fight Maurice Smith, but Severn pulled out last minute because him and Fry were trying to play businessman leverage guys with this the Persia manager, and they're going to go to Japan. And they said, fine, I'm going to Japan. And so they didn't have anybody to fight. And no one cared anyways about those guys. No one cared about these fighter guys. They don't have fighter's fortitude, a warrior's heart. They don't have any of that. And all these comment clowns are going to sit there and go, oh, you're not a warrior. You don't even know what a warrior is to comment on that. And so these guys are all like, oh, I'm going to go to Japan. That's why I'm not for sure on this, but I believe that's why you never saw either one of those guys again, because they were trying to play like they're some valuable commodity of a soft wrestler, and some other guy, in my opinion, was on steroids. I mean, he is the size of Paul Herrera. How do you go from fighting? I mean, look at all those old pictures on the internet and everything of him going to fighting David versus Goliath. How can you be a David, all right, and then turn around and look like Don Fry does nowadays? You have to be saucing it up. You're not natural. You're not real. How these? Believe it or not, I have integrity, and I could not lay in bed, and there's no reason not to, but believe it, I have integrity. How do you lay in bed and go, I'm just a big phony? All I am is a syringe. And then on top of that, like, trust me, I've known gazillions of people that take steroids. That's not a big deal to me. If you want to take steroids, get big, do whatever you want, but don't turn around and fight and then say, "Oh, I'm a great fighter because I'm a great fighter and I have a warrior's heart." You don't. You're a pussy. And for him or any of those guys to lay in bed at night and go, "I'm just a fake facade," like when I bench 600 pounds on TV. Oh, those are fake weights. No, they're not fake weights. These are fake as your brain is fucking trying to tear me down to your pussy ass level. That's what that is.
There was another story he talked about where it was before one of the UFC events, I guess, and you were going to be spoken to by a doctor, and apparently you said you didn't have a problem with him being in the room when the doctor had this to tell you, and he said a doctor came in and told you that your liver was shutting down, and you said, "Well, basically, I don't care. I'm going down. I'm not stopping." But did this actually happen?
You know what? Are you kidding me? No, I think it's hysterical that you could. Why would you even invite yourself into that conversation? And unbelievable. You know, the funny thing is, my last fight, and you know, after everybody talks about my record and all this bullshit. The first time, and we'll get back to John, and then remind me to go back to this. John, they didn't have anybody to fight. Remember when Severn was supposed to fight him and Fry was supposed to fight him? They didn't have anybody fight, so they pulled me out of the thing, and John's all, "Whoa, what's going on? Are you sure you want to do this?" And I don't give a fuck. Who's going to fight? Who cares? And so he goes, I go, "I don't have any gas." And I go, "Do you understand?" To John, I go, "Do you understand that there would not be a show? You would not be here. Nobody would be here unless I showed up and fought. Do you understand that?" And he's all, yeah, I get it." And I go, "I'm not in shape." I go, "Literally, I was on a bar stool, sitting down, looking at the ocean like I did when I didn't have a fight to do." And I go, "I went there and I'm not in shape. You got that? Not in shape. And when I'm not training, I get out of shape. I party. I have a good time." Anyways, he's all, "Yeah, I get it." I go, "Okay, well, Maurice Smith," I go, "I'm not going to take a beating. He's gonna sit back and start kicking the shit out of me. If I look at you, stop the fucking fight. I'm not here. I'm here so they have a fight. I got a puncher's chance. I actually knocked him down, and I had a chance. I could have knocked him out, and I would have been the champion. But I'm not afraid of my record." And Jeff Blatnick was there, and he goes, "Yeah, but your record." And I go, "I don't care about my record." I go, it's just tournaments now. Who cares?" And he goes, "Tank, you're going to learn that you don't want to do this. I know I can't talk you out of it. It's going to come back to haunt you." And sure enough, all these pussies that are out there, that all they have to claim is a record. They don't have 1 ounce of fighter's fortitude. It's just a skill to them. They just can go out there and do their moves, and all that has nothing to do intellectually about your makeup and who you are. I go, "Oh, well, who cares? It's just a fight." So the fight with Maurice Smith happens. We get back up on our feet. I had my hands on my knees, and that's what you do when you're tired. When you wrestle, you put your hands on your knees. And I looked up at John, and he knew that I didn't have any more air, and he stopped the fight. And that's how things should have been. That was the only time that he ever stopped a fight of mine that I would say, "Yeah, There was a mutual agreement on that one. All the rest were to get his fighting style and him being a pussy and the pussies uniting against the only real warrior there was. Why do you think I was the draw? It's not because I was doing fucking backflip kicks and knocking people out. It's because I have it in my heart and in my head, more importantly, to go out and go to war.
They also laughed at you for saying on the Rampage Jackson podcast that Don Fry greased his ankles in his match with you. I didn't see this podcast. Maybe you can explain it. What do you think about them
And
laughing?
that's how stupid they are. No, I go ahead and pull it up where it says he greased his ankles. I said he wasn't wearing wrestling shoes in his feet, and everybody that I ever got a ankle crank on had wrestling shoes on. And I said that his feet were bare feet and they were all slimy from sweat and everything else. And when I reached down, and it's right there on tape, reached down to dig my elbow in and grab his foot and start cranking on his ankle, his toes started popping out of my hands. Where they concocted this goofy ass story that he greased his shoes is nonsense. It's more of it's like the goons getting together to make fun of the cool guy. The guy, in this case, it's all the wannabe posers getting together, going, oh, see the real tough guy, the guy that's really tough, that will save your ass if you need your ass saved. That guy that will get down. See, look at him. There's a kink in his armor. He said he greased his wrestling shoes. How retarded are these people? They're children. They like I said, they're obviously not well educated for maybe a reason why they don't possess the ability to be well educated, and so you're going to make up a bunch of stories and fallacies. It's amazing to me. Go ahead. You think I'm out here staring out the mountains, having a great time, swimming in my pool? You think you cross my mind? Oh yeah, that's a one. You think that I rent or you rent space in my head, Big John? That's like a little narcissistic cliche. Oh yeah. Turn it around on yourself. And he rents a rent space in Tank's head. He's thinking about me. I'm not thinking about you. If I think about you in my head, you are the trash heap of junk smoldering in the side, and I laugh at you, just like anybody. You will be in my head for the rest of my life, and I'm sure I'll be in your head. But you don't need to make a cliche about it and go, makes you look worse than you are.
One thing that I think all the fans watching will agree with me on, where they kind of hit below the belt, is where they said they feel sorry for you and you look like a, quote, brittle old man, end quote.
Yeah, isn't that funny? And then I got CTE too. I 99.9% of you people out there that say these things, guess what? If you had to go through what I did, you wouldn't be here. You would be long gone, pussy boys. You have no idea, and you couldn't even fathom what I've gone through. And as far as my dogs are getting down over there. Anyways, as far as you guys thinking that you feel sorry for me, I've had the greatest life on planet Earth, man. For me, whoever could have written my story couldn't write it any better. And so whatever you're doing, I hope it is what you want it to be, because mine is. And what was the question to begin with before I got off on a tangent?
I was just gonna ask for your comments on them calling you brittle old man, but for the CTE thing, there's one thing I hate is that the people that will make fun of people for having CTE when they're fighting for your entertainment, and you don't have it bad. I'm sure you have it some. We all do that have been in wrestling or fighting, but I hate the people that make fun.
I don't think I have any CTE. Back to the point of what I've been through physically, you say whatever you want to say, and I'm slow at recollecting things and keeping my train of thought. It's nothing to do with CTE. It's called having 6 strokes. 6. There's a crown of them. I couldn't fucking talk. I couldn't do anything when I came back to consciousness. All I could do was stare. Now, I would say I've done a pretty miraculous comeback from that. I was not only 6 feet in under, I was 1 foot in the grave, man. I was dead. I died 5 times. So all you guys that have comments out there with CTE and the whole 9 yards, why don't you go die once? Man, die twice. Try dying five times, 6 strokes. Yeah. And you at the anonymity of sitting at home and typing on a typewriter, what kind of person are you? Of somebody, just as a human being, you talk about people make up stories about me being a bully. I don't think so. You're the bully. You're sitting there anonymously calling me names, ad hominem names, making fun of my shirt, which is actually making fun of yourselves, because you don't have any idea what rain spooners are. They're very nice shirts worn by very classy people. And that's probably why you make fun of them and call me Ned Sanders or Saunders or Flounders. Yeah, who cares? You call me a cartoon name? What cowardly, bullyish thing could you do that to? I don't care if it's me or you or anybody else. Oh, let's make fun of Hannibal for wearing a hat or something. Ooh, what's going on in your head? Are you trying to make yourself better than me? You got a long way to go, trust me.
And don't you have a wife that's like 20 years younger than you?
It's 25 years younger in my head.
There you go. You're doing pretty well. The other comment he made is he says he admits his dad didn't like you, but he says he thought you guys, like, you never had any in-person issues, he's saying. He said the last time he saw you, you
I've
posed for a
never,
picture with him.
I've never had anything to do with the storyteller, and I'll tell you why. And it came to be true, and that is I never knew when he was going to be my referee. He already ripped me off a bunch of times. He didn't give me calls because he didn't, or he didn't give me calls because he liked me. All right, he didn't. He screwed me over quite a bit. That cabbage fight, I got retribution later for that, but so I don't really care. But that cabbage fight, he stopped it on the corner with a cut. If he would have let it go a little bit longer, I would have knocked him out, just like I did later in his hometown in the Blaisdell Arena in Hawaii. I stretched that mother out for a while. Night, night. No cabbage dancing, only in your head there. Anyways, he it's amazing. Let's just put it that way. I had to I had to be nice. And because I never knew when he was going to be my ref again. And when I came back, which I should have never have, all those fights that I had after professional wrestling, I was deathly sick. And I just did it because I love fighting. And I went through all the scenarios in my head and I said, hey, you know what? I was supposed to fight Severn and they wouldn't let me pass the physical. And so I then went and, boy, I was supposed to fight Severn and they wouldn't let me fight him. Anyway, so my last fight, anyways, but back to, they had me come back and they needed a pop. And so they go, let's get Tank back here. And Tito was running his run was coming to an end, and they're like, oh wow, where are we going to go now? So I walked into, we were in Atlantic City or something, and I go walking by and I hear his big dumb bellowing voice, what are you doing here? I'm like, oh my God. More of this dumb guy. And I just go, just collecting a check, big dog, and walked off. And then he goes and runs to the thing. Like, oh, Tank's just here for the money. What an idiot. So then again, he screwed me over with cabbage right there. He always had to go, right on, nice. Yeah. But in my head, I'm like going, you sow, you reap what you sow. And I guess he put fertilizer on it to the truth. The truth is what he sows, and that's what's coming out right now. And I don't get anything out of this but telling the truth and exposing a lying fraud that made up some position for himself. Like I could say I put all the rings together at the WCW. You know who I am? I'm Ring Builder Dave. Woohoo! Who gives a rat's ass about a ref?
There's something else that he said that I can confirm. You're not belligerent and drunk all the time. I've been around you in your real life when I visited you a few years ago. You're a very nice person. You're polite to people in public. You're nice to waiters and waitresses and staff. But according to what him and his podcast buddy said, you're drunk and belligerent all the time.
Yeah, right. I'm drunk, belligerent, and irresponsible. I'm probably the most responsible person there. Unbelievable, but you can paint whatever you want to paint. I've read things on these, like I said, these comment clowns. One guy's like, "Oh, he's a bully. My dad told me he was a bully. He'd spit in his lunch in high school." Are you kidding me, kid? I mean, you should be mad at your dad for spewing out lies like that. First of all, I wasn't at lunch at high school. I left every lunch, and that's like child abuse, lying to your children. Like, come on now.
And the last thing, we've really covered this interview in depth. We've given it more than it deserves, but at least when people search it now, they can get your side. But the biggest thing he said was, I guess he claimed you were kicked out of UFC because you threatened to kill his
Oh,
wife.
oh. I'm glad you brought that up. That almost slid under the radar. This clown, right, is running around. He was just sitting there with Art Davie. And that's when they were starting the show. And then Bob bought the show from the Gracies and all that. And so I got things going on here. Hey, little guy. So What were we talking about? Getting
The
kicked out of the
wife
show. Getting kicked out of the show. So I incorrectly remembered Puerto Rico wrongly. Has nothing to do with affecting the story at all, or his oddball, goofy ass behavior and lies that he's spewing now. He the fight was going on, and I thought for some reason I was in Paul's corner that time. That's how long ago it was. But I was sitting in the audience with my then girlfriend, if I dare to call her that. Anyways, so Alon Goes comes up to me in the audience and starts flapping nonsense in his goofy ass. Duh, duh, duh. Oh my God, is this guy like retarded or something? And he's doing it right in front of my companion, lady companion there. And I'm like, no, you don't talk to me like that, especially in front of my woman there. And so I go, I'm going to take care of business here. And Eddie, who's also fought in the UFC, I got him a fight in there. I got all my friends' fights in the UFC. And Eddie was there, and I go, fuck that. No one talks to me like that. I don't care who you are. So I go, I'm going to get him. And so I go walking my way to go get him, and Eddie's probably 5 yards behind me in this arena. And so she starts yelling to Eddie to stop me. Get him, get him, get him. Don't let him, don't let him go over there and do that. They were on the other side of the octagon. Well, I hear no sense at that time. So I'm walking and Eddie's running after me like, Dave, Dave, Dave. So I walked up to them, and of course they all are stone-faced like, what? We didn't say anything. Yeah, and he started to pop off. I went to slap him across his face. Like I said, I don't sucker punch people. And that turned into like a shoving, pushing match. And Elaine used to do all the clerical work and all that kind of stuff for the show. And so she ran up to her and said, oh, I heard you yelling, get him, get him. And she's like, what the hell are you talking about? And once again, she wasn't, my girlfriend was there, and they started getting it into each other. And I went to split them apart. Like, get the hell out of here, Elaine. And she is a Karen from the get-go. She thinks she wears the pants and she can boss you around. She's from the very first time I talked to her, I was like, oh my God, she must be having a bad day. But that got separated. And then she, of course, wants to elevate it into a big scene. And I go, get the fuck out of here before I kill you. It was like hyperbole. It was not like, and it's like a narcissistic thing to do, like turn a statement like that into a big deal about yourself. And so that's what she clung on to, like, oh, he said he was going to kill me. Oh my God, I'm not going to be able to sleep at night. It was nonsense. And so they try to make a big deal out of it. And so I go home, we all fly home, I get a phone call. And it's like the show. And I was under contract with these people. And they're like, we got problems. And I'm like, oh, what's your problem? And they go, well, Big John and Elaine and this Dr. Ron Isterbro are all going to quit because of you. And I'm like, good. Who the hell are they? He's a referee. He's like Ronnie the ring builder on the side of the fucking thing. Who cares? And his wife, she needs to go too. She's a bitch. And they're like, no, this is like serious. I got serious. Are you fucking kidding me? Really? Are they putting asses in the seats? No. Oh, I'm gonna go watch a fight because Big John McCarthy's the ref. What? Where do you wake up thinking like that? Anyways, so time goes by, and I believe this is years ago. That Randleman was fighting. He might not have been against that Boss Rutan guy, and they were fighting. That's probably the only reason why I would be home watching that is because of that's what the fight was. And so we watched the fight, and then after that show, I think it was in Detroit or something like this. I'm not a UFC historian. I give it very much thought, really. And so the phone rings after the show, and it was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? What am I doing?" I guess they realized that I was the personality of the show, and that back in those days, it was crazy, man. I couldn't walk anywhere. I was getting mobbed everywhere I went. And because people finally saw what real fighting was and not this mixed martial arts thing and the whole 9 yards, they saw real fighting with heart and fighters' fortitude and not a skill. And so they realized, everybody wanted to see Tank, and they better figure out how to get him back. And so Bob, like, was saying, you need to go get knee surgery. Go get knee surgery. You're still on the payroll, and we'll figure something out. And then they came up with this goofy ass letter of apology. And these guys, all the goons, are going to form a pack, bunch of high school geeks. They're going to form a pack, and they're going to quit if the big bully gets to stay around. And I'm the big bully. I'm the coolest guy you ever meet if you're cool to me. And you get what you ask for. And so somehow this letter showed up, and it found its way to the McCartneys and Dr. Istradrow. And so everything, they had to realize that their leverage was really not leverage, and they agreed to stay on if I come back. And I came back, and it seems like they still stayed on. Very funny story. No one knows who wrote that letter. The rumor has it David Isaacs wrote the letter. He's a Harvard attorney, so he'd probably have to dumb it way down.
I gotta ask you what you think of Conor McGregor not fighting this big fight that's was supposed to happen at the end of the month, $20 million gate, and supposedly he's pulling out due to an injury, but there's
Yeah,
lots of rumors.
you know what? I don't know the man, and good, whatever. If that's how he feels, and he doesn't want to fight, more power to him. And he's unable to. He doesn't want to. Doesn't matter. He doesn't want to fight. Doesn't fight. Who am I to second guess somebody that's going to fight? Big John.
Do you have time to take a few fan questions? I won't ask all of them because there was a ton, but there's a few
Sure.
that
Oh, no worries, man. I will. Yeah, I got nothing to do.
This guy
Fuck you
wants to
guys.
know who would win between a 25-year-old Tank Abbott and a 35-year-old Tank Abbott.
Oh, 35-year-old. Much more wisdom. And I would be lying if I say I've learned a lot of skill from those 2 dates. Those 10 years of skill that I've learned. I'm not some slouch that came just jumped off the bar stool. I come from a football family, and my brother is 5 years older than me, and he was like the Mr. All-American football star at his high school and all that in college. And I was the baby 5 years younger. I was like the dog, the pet that my brother and sister helped raise.
Matthew Granahan wants to know, did you party with Ric Flair ever in WCW?
I certainly did. We'll leave it at that. All I
Did you
can tell
happen
you
to
is,
see?
all I can tell you is, woo! That's what he was doing because I can get down.
When I saw his footage of him at the pizza place recently, I don't know if you saw it. All I was thinking about is that the typical type of guy that you would pick a fight with at the bar, like a guy that's acting like a bully in the bar.
No, I didn't see Rick. I don't know if Rick was acting like a bully, but you have to realize people out there take pot shots at you all the time. So I can empathize with Rick. I don't know the lead up. I don't know anything about it, but if Rick was getting down, somebody must have ruffled his feathers. Doesn't make it right or wrong, but what you gonna do? So it can only take so much. I'm sure somebody was poking him with a stick.
Did you ever see him do his helicopter trick?
I have not. I can imagine what you're talking about, but I haven't seen it.
Someone says, and this is a good question because I was wondering this myself. There was no mention about Tito Ortiz on Joe Rogan. Any idea why?
Well, much respect to Joe Rogan, and it's his show, and I just took his lead. And like people are saying, oh wow, he's all quiet, he's got CTE. It's all about where the podcast host takes it, and he didn't want to talk about Tito, and I'm kind of sick of talking about Tito, and so he just didn't get brought up. Tito doesn't need to be brought up. I was today looking, surfing the whatever it's called, the gram or whatever, and there's one after another about how dumb Tito is. It's amazing. You know what? And I hate to say this, but there's some validity to this. That Big John is running a real close second to Tito.
Well, they're both not very relevant these days. You're actually, it's funny, for a while, Tito was still being talked about, but now he seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth. We don't hear much about him. Someone wants to know the backstory of Hugo Duarte. He heard there was some tension and smack talking
Oh,
behind the scenes.
you know what? That was I was in shape for that fight. I always get blamed for not being in shape and a whole 9 yards. Well, note to everyone, all those fights that I wasn't in shape, I was a last minute fill in for just about everyone. And yeah, no kidding, I could only last 3 to 5 minutes. Well, that's usually what a street fight lasts. But when you're fighting a trained professional, they're putting a lot of road work in, and one of my shows, I needed knee surgery. I couldn't run. I just showed up to fight. And so I forgot the question.
I wanted to know the
Oh,
backstory of Hugo.
Hugo Duarte. So I was in tip-top shape for Hugo Duarte. Um, and so he was just doing regular fight stuff to build stuff up, like the Jake Paul Tyson fight. I'm going to beat that old man. He wasn't talking about age in those days, but just nonsense back and forth to build some heat. But we all saw what happened. The best. I was in one of the better shapes, not my best shape for that fight, and it only lasted like a minute and a half. At least I had uh, energy to go party afterwards.
I already know the answer to this, but they want to know if you think Tito has ever done steroids.
Just look at his head. You think you think you think those heads just appear like that? And like I said, I'm in the tens, 10, 20, 30, 40 people that have taken steroids from all walks of life. I don't care if you take steroids. Even when I fought Belfort, I didn't care. Everybody's going, oh my God, look at this kid. He's a roid machine. And I go, so what? You just deal with it. Who cares? And it doesn't matter if he was steroided out or not on that time we fought. He caught a good blow and knocked me out, or at least on Queer Street. But steroids is a big deal. You know what? I consider it cheating. That's why I said I don't care if you into bodybuilding and all that kind of crap. That is funny, some weird stuff, man. I'm thinking it's drug induced, steroid induced, where you're flexing and trying to look good. I mean, that's what women are for. I mean, it's amazing, and
No,
it's weird.
I know you got a lot of respect for Haku, but Boring Banana says at the time you were both in WCW, who would have won in a shoot fight between you and Haku around those WCW years?
Well, a lot of people like to sit around and call me arrogant and everything else, but to be me and to be in the hundreds of street fights and do all that, you have to think that way. So I think I could easily hand Haku his ass, but that's what it's fighting. Who knows? He is a tough man by any imagination, and I actually like him. I think he's a cool guy. We've hung out around each other and had fun in and out of bars, and he's a cool guy. And it's nothing. It's never ever been disrespect either way.
He's
But
known for biting and eye gouging and stuff in real fights. Have you fought
I
people like that will try and bite your nose off?
I've been bitten more than once, and I've had more than twice. I've had thumbs in my eye socket, and
Someone also,
and
okay,
I,
sorry.
I and I am not a stranger to biting. When I used to have my teeth, which got all knocked out in a car accident, for all these clowns running around saying they knocked my teeth out. Um, I had a bridge for a while, but I used to bite people. I bit one guy's ear and it was hanging off. And much respect to the guy. We all knew each other, and he just got out of control. He didn't press charges. He didn't run to the cops. He didn't do anything. His first name's Jim, and I have respect for you, Jim, for that. And I remember. You know, the cops wanted him to get me in trouble, and he did not. And he was cool for not doing that. And I take my hat off and say thank you.
Kayfabe all day wants to know, how would a fight between you and Fedor have gone?
Wow, that Fedor is an amazing guy. He's got hips like a cat, and he's got good hands. And that's a tough man. But like I was just saying, I can't say it because that's how my brain's wired. I could see it going either way, and like I always would say, hey, you know what? Let's have like a World Series. You have a fight. Let's fight 3 times. Like 1, 2, 3, and the best 2 wins. That would be more of an accurate way to do a fight. But yeah, no, Federer, way before anybody even knew who Federer was, I was a big fan of his.
Ryan wants to know if you and your crew thumped out Pat Smith.
Oh, yeah. Well, Pat Smith is no longer with us. Rest in peace, fellow warrior. But UFC 6, which is really first show without conflict of interest. On the way walking back, Pat Smith they're all trying, see, they didn't know who I was. They all thought I was just a big mouth street fighter guy that was going to get beat up by these skilled martial artists. Well, so once they see me take care of Matua, they were like, holy shit, this guy's for real. So he's not talking BS. And so we're walking back after, I believe, the polar bear fight. And Pat Smith's in the back, and they were all like little camps. And I was like the outsider. Pat Smith's all jumping around. I believe he was in the show. And he threw a kick at my dad, who was just walking by with us. I mean, like my dad. You know what I'm saying? I was like 30. He must have been like 56. He's like my age. And I was like, okay, you're going to get it. And like I said, I'm a very patient person. And he then went on to, I was all beat up. I was tired. I would go to sleep. The rest of my crew was there, and it was just like a party, like, hey, let's go to a vacation area. And I guess they were all partying in the hotel. And him and Paul, who you're going to have on, had an altercation in one of the parties that they were having in the hotel, like in a room or something like that. So I get up the next day, I walk down to their room. It's like a double bed room, and everybody's all packed up. Paul's tying his wrestling shoes on tight. And I'm like, hey, what's up with him? And he had like a tense look on his face and everything. And because I don't know. So we all walked off, and we're getting in elevators and get in the elevator, and the door pops open. And guess who it is? It's Pat Smith. And Pat Smith is standing there, and Paul's like, oh, yeah, motherfucker, what are you going to do now? And they started pushing each other into a thing, and then it escalated into a fight, and Paul knocked him out cold. He was out. And me and Eddie were keeping everybody back in the elevator lobby. And my footing got ajar, so I needed to step in the way of Pat's face, and I might have kicked him. But after that, Paul took off and everybody took off. And then lo and behold, back to Big John McCarthy running in. I'm like watching my hands on the TV. CTE. Anyways, so John goes into immediate cop mode, and they were all under the impression that I beat him up. And Paul is on the other side of John, loading up in a car, throwing his bags and everything into this like blazer type thing, gets in and they take off real fast as John's wagging his finger in my face. You're gonna tell me what to do. I swear to God. I'm like, okay. And then I guess the guy's name's Ty Mack. He's a black referee. He came up and goes, no, I saw the whole thing. And I think it might have been Maurice Smith jumped on Paul and got him in a chokehold. But that was the story. And then Pat Smith passed away. And I guess you can clean it up with Paul.
Roger wants to know if any of your old rivals reached out to you when you were having your health issues, and if they did, how did that make you feel?
Not really, except for Paul and Eddie. But they weren't my rivals. No one really does. You know, when you die and you're on your deathbed, you find out who your friends are. And I guess that's why I only talk to my wife and a few people now.
You mentioned the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight. What do you think about everything going on with that right now? I guess it's been delayed till November. Do you think it's still going to happen?
Yeah, I hope it happens for those guys. I mean, get down with the bad self. But you know what? It really just boils down to it's not a skills match, which a typical boxing match would be. Here, bud, come on.
Okay, well.
Oh, I got my dogs attacking me. Anyways, it's not really a skills match, and it's about father time and how well Mike could beat off father time. I'll tell you what, as delusional as I am right now, I'm pretty sure I can get down if I had to. So the old man in the Rain Spooner classy shirt, well, what's his name? Ned. And my grandma glasses, the 9.5 grandma glasses, and my Rain Spooner will teach you youngsters a new lesson. Don't poke the bear.
I agree. And if you ever get stem cells and stuff, I think your body will get better and better and better. And as you continue to recover from your surgeries, you've
Yeah.
been through hell. You're only going to get in better shape as time goes on.
Yeah, you know, like the CTE and all that kind of stuff. I was just following along with Joe's speed and how it goes. It was very quiet kind of place, and I out of total respect for Joe, which I think he did a great job in what we did, and I just followed his lead. I can't dictate or turn up the volume or change things around on somebody else's show.
The dude wants to know if you think the Vitor fight was stopped early.
Which Vitor fight? My fight?
Yeah, your fight.
No, he obviously caught me pretty good. What are you gonna do? it happens, man. It's like that's why I say you should have 3 fights, because shit can happen like that. Just because he got a good shot doesn't mean he's going to have a good shot every time you step up. But are you going to cry about it? Fuck, who cares? I'm going to talk about all my fights. After I came back, we never extrapolated or went further down that road. I was sick, and you have cirrhosis, you're nauseous, you don't feel good. It's nobody's fault but my own, but I was sick. Now, you're not going to see anybody else, I doubt very seriously, that's at my level that would say, screw it, I don't care, I'll fight, whatever. My very last fight, I fought some Indian guy. I forget his name. But it was at a casino. And so obviously I was the headline. And we go down and the show's starting. And I'm like, when am I going to be on? I wasn't going to be on for like an hour and 15 minutes or so. So I told Paul, who's been in my corner quite a bit, hey, come get me at my room. And he goes, what do you mean? They had like tents next to the hotel. I went back and I laid down, which I passed out. Will you stop that? I laid down and I passed out, and then I go 10 minutes before the fight, you come get me. That's how sick I was. So he came and got me, knocked on my door 10 minutes, and he's all, Dave, come on. I'm like, oh, wow. So I got up, walked down, literally just took my stuff off and walked right into the octagon and fought this guy. And I walk out there, and his fists are flying by my head like rockets. I'm going, holy smokes, I guess I'm in a fight. And his name is Warpath. Great guy, by the way. I don't know his real name. Anyways, so I just shot a double, and now I remember it's called crotch sniffing. And I took him down. I was laying there going, oh no, what did I get myself into? Anyways, it was a haze, and that was the end of my fighting career. I thought I was going to die. It was a very real possibility that I was going to pass away. And I often talk to myself, and I said, well, are you all right? Are you all right with that? Hey, and are you all right with it? And I was all right with it. I felt like I lived a pretty crazy life. And I'm lucky, man, to do all the things that I've done. I'm sure everybody's had a crazy, great life. Not everybody, but a lot of people think, wow. But man, talk about the bells and whistles and blowing the top off. I mean, like I think about professional wrestling and watching it when I was a kid, and even when I was a kid till I died. But even then, I was like, wow, man. And the next thing you know, I jumped into the ring in between a wrestling match when I was wrestling in junior college. Me and the heavyweight went to go see WWF at Anaheim. You can tell them to be quiet. And we went to Anaheim, and in between matches, me and the heavyweight from my team jumped in the ring, not knowing a thing, not even know how to run ropes. I clotheslined him a few times. And then years later in my life, I'm actually wrestling for the heavyweight championship at WCW. Who gets to do that, man? It's like awesome. I've lived like the craziest life. I traveled the world fighting. I've been traveled and done things you can't even imagine. I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed. And then I get a death sentence. Done. You're over with. You got to sit around and think about it for like a year and a half. Then it happens, and then boom, you get 6 more fucking years, man. So, just think about that. You're gonna die. I'm telling you right now, you're a dead man walking, and you get 6 extra years and counting, man. I'm so happy, so grateful. So you can't, clowns like Lion, what is it? The big donut, uh, what, yeah, Big John McCartney, clowns like that, they don't even scratch the surface of my fun. And you think you're with your little narcissistic cliche, oh, he's renting space in his head, I'm in there for free. Who says that kind of stuff other than a serial textbook narcissist? Oh, you're getting over, Big John.
So what happened? You jumped into the ring at a WWE event. Did security like run in the ring, or what happened there?
Hey, you don't see my my Instagram? I got a picture of us.
Oh God, I'm gonna have to look this up.
Yeah,
That's great.
no, yeah. Well, we were going to watch because we would all screw around before practice started and do like uh, fake wrestling moves. We didn't even know what the hell we were doing, but like clotheslines, that kind of stuff, but the actually real stiff ones. And it would be like a warm up to the warm up before practice. Anyway, so the whole wrestling season went by, and WWF was at Anaheim with Hulk Hogan, and I was good. I remember seeing Hulk Hogan in the back, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's Hulk Hogan, man!" It was like starstruck. And when there, I think it was at King Kong Bundy days and all that kind of stuff. So, being as poor as we were, we got tickets, and they ended up being at the top of the arena, the last row. And we were drinking margaritas the whole way. We got like a big half gallon, and we're drinking margaritas the whole way there. And I go, we got to get in there and do that. And Big John, actual wrestling partner that was on my team, he's like, okay. And I go, no, I'm serious. I'm going to get in there. And he goes, I'll follow you. And so I did just like I always do. There it is. And I jumped in the ring and clotheslined him and was beating him up. But the security thought we were part of the show. So they were letting the match go. And his name's Gonzalez, but he goes by Gonzo. So they were asking, what's your name? And he got the whole crowd yelling, Gonzo, Gonzo. And the security figured it out. And they come running out going, hey, these guys aren't part of the show. These are fans. So I took a powder. They were all trying to get out of the thing. I took a powder on the far side and ran out. And they arrested his ass for trespassing. And that was my first wrestling match.
So you have wrestled for WWE, if anyone ever asks.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you think they never tried to recruit you, or did you just not care because you were over in WCW?
Oh, I had, at the end of that time, because you wrestled, when you get to that point of that level of wrestling, you kind of live like the rock star lifestyle, the private jets and the planes and everything, the parties, and so that was that. And I am kind of rational, not irresponsible. And I was thinking, I think if you continue on this road, you're not going to have much time left. And so instead of going down that route, I just decided I had a great run. It was awesome. And leave it be. And then, like in Barfly, when they say, when he gets fired from the talent agency or thing, he goes, "What am I going to do now?" He says, "I don't know. I guess I'm going to go to Las Vegas, drink myself to death." Well, I kind of took that role. I metaphorically went to Las Vegas. I just took the long way. And like I said, man, I am so grateful and so lucky to be sitting here talking to you and listening to everything about all these people that might want to think something. Seriously, when you're sitting there and you're making these little comments, ask yourself why you're making this comment, and you'll probably come back to yourself and go, "God, I'm a pathetic person, making fun of somebody for no other reason but to be narcissistically better than him." Yeah, dumbass.
And last question I got to ask you, because you've been really generous with all these questions. There's a show out right now on Vice that The Rock has done called Who Killed WCW? You were a WCW star. Who killed it, in your opinion? Why did it close?
Oh man, let me tell you, that whole experience was awesome. I stayed completely out of politics. All those guys, all of them were cool. I busted a little bit on Lex Luger, but Lex Luger was living in his own little world, and he was Lex Luger of his world, and so I cut him some slack on that. Now Terry Taylor's just a dick, but everybody else was super cool. It was shark infested waters, and I tried to stay out of it. I had listen to this one. I mean, this is how awesome it was. You go watch like Hulk Hogan and all these, and then you're part of them. And then after every weekend and every show and every state we flew to and everything we did, after the show, I got to hang around with Mean Gene Okerlund and get drunk all night. How cool is that, man? That guy seen it all, and man, he had awesome stories, and he had no narcissistic things to go after and an agenda. He didn't have an agenda to get over on, and he wasn't trying to do whatever. He was just there to have cocktails and have fun. I miss Mean Gene. He was cool. But like, who else? I'm telling you, I lived a dream life, my dream. But I mean, everybody's got their own dream, man. If I could write my own dream, I lived it. Still am. I got an
Plus,
awesome
you got
wife.
paid after it closed, right? You said on Joe Rogan when WCW
Yeah,
closed, you still got 2 years pay.
1 year.
Oh, one
Yeah,
year, yeah.
yeah. And so I was cruising around, going to different places. You know what? And when I was doing that, I would buy tickets to go to different places. I've been a lot of places. And I used uh, Big John and his wife, Karen, uh, the donut that he is. I used them for travel. They had a travel agency. So I used them for travel. And I did a lot of business with them. They should be happy about that.
Did you
My
ever
wife,
fight it?
my wife's giving me some hand signals.
Someone asked about
Somebody
Yeah.
wants to know about the painting up there.
Yeah,
You see
somebody
it?
asked about that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's my mother,
and you
and
painted it.
and I painted it.
You do a lot.
I did a lot of paintings back in the day, as well as writing my 3 books. Yeah. I didn't even intentionally use that as a segue, but my books are awesome. There they are. That will tell you about all the characters in life that I've traveled across. None of them in the book are the people that are in there. I just took my experiences from people. Life is about experiences and dealings with other people, and I made them into characters. And the everybody in the book is just a made up character of a whole list of people. And you know, Winchell Duncan happens to be the referee in the no holds barred fighting show that Walter Fox, who is in Before There Are Rules, he's the main character, and he was fighting in the streets. And it goes all the way how he ended up in fighting in no holds barred fighting show with the promoter guy. His name I came up with is Big Bart Shady, and the referee is Winchell Duncan. Winchell Duncan is just a conglomeration of all the referees I've ever come across.
And those books are on Amazon. And
.com.
all
And
the
those
fans really appreciate you answering their questions, by the way.
Oh, awesome! And I have like 20 paintings. I'm almost ready to put the whole painting on. But can I twist that? Yeah, I'll see. Here we go. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. There's mommy.
Well, it's
That was
very
back
80s style. Like,
That's called Stoli induced
That was
pain.
done in 91.
91. 90.
No, 11. Sorry.
Ni-
1.
What?
11.
2011. That's
I
when
think
I was still kicking.
the Smiths would approve of that painting. It reminds me of their style.
Oh yeah. That's there it is.
Next
Woo-hoo.
time you're here, you can see that.
Yeah, next time they're here, and I got one a bird in the corner over there. Bird, the real life Rambo, 3 tours in Vietnam, strapped on the side of a helicopter on Loach. He's my best friend category guy, lived at my house. That guy got down. He traveled with me a lot around the world, and yeah, he passed away, but always in my heart. Bird. You know, people always wondered why. How come you don't have people around? Watching you because everybody wants to challenge you and all that kind of stuff. No one really ever really wanted to challenge me, but I always had Bird, and he was the short little fat guy with his army field jacket on, with his black Pathfinder hat on, and his pockets weren't always empty, and it wouldn't have been his first barbecue if he had to shoot somebody.
Yeah, I could imagine. Someone wants to see the other pictures. You're going to be back on Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Pacific, with Paul Herrera, which I'm pronouncing his last name wrong.
Herrera.
Paul Herrera.
Yeah.
I'll blame that on CTE.
Oh, we'll
Paul
see.
Herrera.
Maybe that's it. That funky Walmart shirt that he's got on, a Hawaiian shirt. You ain't gonna find one of these in Walmart.
So maybe you can show the other pictures then when you have more time. But you are on Instagram, which you mentioned, where we looked up your WWE wrestling picture. Maybe Sally can tell us where people can find you. You're also on Twitter.
Tank.Abbott.
Yes, Tank.Abbott. On Instagram.
Yeah, we're getting down on the gram.
Oh my God.
That's
Very
right.
good.
We're old. Oh, I'm old. I can't say where. I'm old, but trust me, I've seen a lot.
Not me, Devin.
No, you're 25 years younger, which is great.
Right, exactly.
You're a blessing to him for sure. And I'm
She's
sure
my
he'll
angel.
admit that.
She's my angel, man. I wouldn't be here.
Thank you, Devin.
You know,
I wouldn't have it any other way.
and you're very fun to hang out with, both of you. But I have to say one thing that I forgot. They actually made fun of you crying when you talked about your wife supporting you. I thought that was low too. I don't know if Sally saw that part, but I thought that was pretty low.
You know what? No one has experienced what we've experienced, and if people want to make fun of it, I honestly, I don't know how anybody could do that. I just wish that it never happens to them or someone they care about. I love my husband. He's been through hell and back. Regardless of what anyone thinks of him as a fighter, who cares? He is a fighter. He loves life, and I'm so happy that he's here with me.
No, I didn't know someone made fun of me crying.
John McCartney did, and his podcast buddy.
What kind of guy does that? Seriously, John, you really should examine your life. Maybe some therapy or something. But listen, when you're looking at death, literally, not just like, oh God, I might fall off a cliff or I might step in a hole. When you're looking at death and you're going to die, and the only person that you can communicate with is your wife. Well, in your case, I feel sorry, but that's all I had. And yeah, it choked me up, but big deal. I have a heart.
Very good. Well, Sally's also cool with you making out with Dave Meltzer from time to time, so you really lucked out there. But
Well, you know what? I can't even tell you what he looks like. I know he's a little guy. Why are all these little guys causing problems?
I think Dave Meltzer likes you overall, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, I don't know him, so.
I think
Yeah, I mean, he saw me kissing. You know what? If he did, don't kiss and tell. You ever heard of that? Come on.
Yeah, no, I think with Meltzer, it's like he's very politically correct, and you're not politically correct, so he might not agree with all your political views or whatever. But I don't think I've seen him too much actually insult you as a fighter. So I think he respects you as a fighter.
Well, that's good to hear. At least there's some positivity out there, you know. And then
So we'll let you.
everybody also says I'm negative and I talk trash on people. Well, if you're Tito lovers, that's your problem. Tito is a bad human being. I have personal experience with that guy, lots of it, and I can make my decisions. So if you want to sit here and call me a bad person because of it, that's on you.
Lots of good comments on here. If you ever watch this back, I put most of them on the screen, but I'll let you close this off with whatever you want to tell the fans. Thanks again for all the information. You were very, very thorough going through this John McCarthy podcast. Our podcast responding to it was longer than his.
Oh, there you go. Well, it's probably hard for him to come up with words, truthful words.